You know what's funny? 100. It's just a number, isn't it? But then you really think about it. 100 people. 100 actual individuals who decided to hit that little tiny subscribe button for this channel. And suddenly, that number feels massive. It feels like 100 hands patting you on the back and more saying, keep going. And for that, and for all of you, I wanted to do something a little different, a little nostalgic, and hopefully a whole lot of fun. This right here is a $100 mystery box of Game Boy games and Game Boy Color games from Double Jump Video Games. I have absolutely no idea what's inside. Could be pure gold, could be pure... well, that's what we're here to find out. This isn't just any unboxing. This is a thank you to you all. Seriously though, 100 subscribers. When I first started this channel, I honestly didn't know if anyone beyond my very patient cat would even watch. And I don't even have a cat. But look at us now. You've all been incredible. The comments, the shares, just knowing you're out there hopefully enjoying this retro journey right along with me. It really does mean the world to me. So to celebrate this amazing journey and this milestone, the first big step for our little community, I decided to treat us all to a proper trip down memory lane. My childhood is practically rattling in that bag. Alright, so let's get to opening this package and see what Double Jump Video Games sent me. It's not too heavy, and it's not too light. It's the perfect, what kind of treasures are waiting inside? I specifically asked Double Jump Video Games for a good mix. Maybe some well-known titles, maybe a few hidden gems. But also, I wanted to get quantity over quality. Game Boy, Game Boy Color, that whole era was just magical, wasn't it? Those chunky cartridges, the sometimes questionable box art, and the sheer joy of just knowing that you had a portable world right in your hand was just amazing. So before I slice this open, and trust me, the temptation is unreal, I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to the OGs out there, the ones that helped me start this community and build it from the ground up. You're the true pioneers of this channel, and I promise, as we grow bigger, I'll never forget that. This unboxing, it's as much as for you as it is me. I'm hoping that we get to discover some real classics that we can all reminisce about down in the comments. Maybe even some games that I've never played before. And you can tell me whether or not they're good. Alright, let's jump in and see what they sent me. But before we do that, I just wanted to say that the only stipulations that I gave Double Jump Video Games when I ordered this mystery box was that I wanted good labels on the games, as well as a good mix. And that meant that they could send me cheaper titles because I wanted quantity over quality. Meaning, I wanted to get the most bang for my buck because I'm actually just starting off my Game Boy Color collection. And so I wanted to ensure that I got the most games that I possibly could for $100. So there may be some cheaper titles in here, but I think overall, I'm going to be pretty happy with what I get because I've gotten mystery boxes from Double Jump Video Games before and been pretty happy with what they've sent me. So let's jump in and see what kind of Game Boy and Game Boy Color games they sent me for this $100 mystery box. First game's going to be NBA Jam Tournament Edition for the original Game Boy. Overall, this label looks pretty clean, and I'm pretty happy with that. Next, they sent me Motocross Maniacs for the original Game Boy. Overall, this label looks pretty clean, the cartridge is pretty clean, and in pretty good shape. The next game they sent me was The Hunt for Red October for the original Game Boy. It's a game that I've seen out in the wild when I've been hunting video games before, so I'm kind of looking forward to playing this and trying it out for the Game Boy and seeing how it plays. If you've played this game, let me know in the comments. Alright, the next game we got was actually a real banger. We got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for the Nintendo Color. This is a game that I'm really looking forward to playing and trying out. I know it doesn't compare quite to the PlayStation 2 Tony Hawk games, but I haven't played this one before, and when I had my Game Boy growing up, I didn't get to play a version of this, so I'm kind of interested to see how it plays. If you guys have played this game, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. So the next game they sent me was baseball. It's got a little picture of Mario on the front, so I'm quite curious to see how this game plays and just what it's all about. The next game they sent me was Radar Mission, another game that I've seen while I've been out hunting in the wild. There's quite a few copies of this, but it does look kind of interesting, so I'm curious. If you've played this game, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Alright, we got another banger this time around, and it's also for the Game Boy Color, and that is X-Men Mutant Academy. Another game that I've seen out in the wild. I've often wondered how it compares to some of the other NES style games that are out there and some of the current versions that you can purchase. This copy was only $4.99, so it's on the cheaper end, but another game that I'm very curious to start playing, and probably one that's going to be at the front of my list. If you've played this game, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Alright, now we've got one straight back from my childhood, and that game is Super Off-Road, game that I remember playing as a kid. Definitely had this game, played a lot of hours of it. The current price on this is $9.99, so I feel like this is probably a pretty decent game. I have so many memories of playing this game as a kid, so this is definitely one of those games that I'm probably going to put in and play first. Alright, the next game that they sent me was definitely at the top of my list as a child. Game that I remember playing, although I didn't play this version because it is a Game Boy Color. I didn't have a Game Boy Color growing up. I had the original Game Boy, but I certainly had a version of this that I played all the time. And that game is Miss Pac-Man, the Special Color Edition. It's a game that I'll probably put in the middle of my list of games to play because I do love a good Pac-Man game or Miss Pac-Man game. So if you've played this game, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Alright, the next game is another great game that I remember playing as a kid and really challenged me, and that's a puzzle game called Quicks. I do remember playing this game as a kid and having a lot of fun. It's not a game that I'll probably play right away right now because I did play a lot of it as a child and do remember playing it. It's a good puzzle game. If you're needing it for your collection, I'd highly recommend you pick this up. It is on the cheaper end at $7.99, so it's a game that you should be able to find pretty readily available at any of your used video game stores. The next game they sent me is again another game that I'm kind of excited to see how the performance and how well it does, and that's a Game Boy Color game called MTV's Pure Ride. As you can see, it's a snowboarding game, and just like the skateboarding games of that era and that time frame, I'm sure it's going to be a little clunky, but I'm very curious to see how the mechanics work and how well it does. If you've played this game, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Alright, the next game that they sent me is going to be one of those classic Disney titles. You might be able to guess what that game is, and that game was Disney's Tarzan. This game is only valued at about $7.99, so again, it's on the cheaper end, which if you have this for another console like the Super NES, or I think they may have came out with this for the Sega Genesis, then you know that that game is fairly inexpensive because a lot of copies were produced. But this is definitely one of those games that I'm kind of looking forward to trying out. I remember playing the Tarzan games as a kid and having a lot of fun with them. They can be kind of difficult at times. So again, it's a game that I'm looking forward to playing and will probably be one of the top games that I start off with first. If you've played this game, let me know in the comments. Alright, the next game that they sent me was a great poker style game, and that's Vegas Stakes. So this is another card game, kind of basic, simple, but that's okay. It's a game that I probably won't play right off the bat, but certainly a great game to add to my collection. And this does look like a pretty clean copy, so I'm fairly happy with that. So obviously for the Game Boy Color, there's going to be a lot of racing games. But this game is not one that I've heard of before, so it's new to me, and I'm quite curious to see how it plays. And that game is going to be F1 Race. So this game is one, like I mentioned, I hadn't played before. I'm sure, and I've played those similar style of racing games for the Game Boy growing up when I had one. So I'm sure it's going to play similar to that and bring back some really classic memories and nostalgia from that era. Alright, we've got another Disney game. Can you guys guess what that game might be? Leave me a comment in the comment section to see if you guys could guess before I tell you what it is. So that game that they actually sent me was 102 Dalmatians, Puppies to the Rescue for the Game Boy Color. This is, again, because it's a Disney title, they probably produced quite a few copies, so it's on the inexpensive side at $4.99. So there's some value there, and it's a game that I'm curious to play, and we'll probably jump in and play a little bit of right off the bat. I do remember playing some of the 101 Dalmatian games, or that style of Disney game that they made for the Game Boy when it came out back in the 90s. So I'm curious to see how this one compares to that. If you've played this game, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Alright, the next game that they sent me is one of those basic everyday titles that you see all over the place, and that's going to be Jeopardy for the Game Boy. It's an inexpensive title, not a game that I'll probably start off with right away, but one that I'm okay with adding to my collection because it's one of those classic games that you can pass around and more than one person can play and you can have fun with your family. Alright, so the next title that they sent me, and it looks like this is probably one of our last titles that we get in this mystery box, is actually, I think, a Japanese or Chinese game. I believe it's probably Japanese, but this game is going to be for the Game Boy Color, and it's Kanuki Banzuki. And on the front of it, it says Muscle Ranking. So it looks like a Japanese game probably. Maybe some sort of muscular game where you're lifting weights or doing something along those lines. Or maybe it's a fighting game. I don't know. If you guys have played this game or are aware of it, please leave me a comment in the comment section and let me know what your thoughts are. And if you got some more information about it, whether or not you enjoyed it or what type of game it is, leave me a comment in the comment section. Alright. This one's kind of ridiculous. This is not a game that I would normally collect or pick up, but it's just one of those funny games that I'm sure they added because it was the extra value that they normally provide in their mystery boxes. So what game do you think this might be? Well, it's going to be for the Game Boy Color. And it's going to be Mary-Kate and Ashley Crush Course. Obviously, it's not a game that I will probably play right away, for sure, and probably just one of those games that I'll stick in my collection, and probably someday I'll trade it away if it ever goes up in value. This game was only $4.99 on their pricing, so it's not a game that I would normally pick out, obviously, but kind of funny to add to your collection. If you've played this game, let me know what your thoughts are. Again, not a game that I would normally pick up. Alright, so I don't know how you guys feel about this mystery box and what you guys were expecting. You might have been expecting some of those real classic titles like Super Mario, Donkey Kong, games like that. In this case, I was going for bulk over the quality or over those style of games. So overall, I'm pretty happy with what I received because I got a good variety of games. There's some puzzle-based games, there's some racing games, there's some sports games, but there's also some challenging games in there. Games like the 2 Disney games that I received, like this Tarzan, really kind of brings me back to that era of gaming as when I was growing up as a kid. It brings back the nostalgia, the 90s, and really remembering me playing this on the Game Boy or Game Boy Color, which I only had a Game Boy, so I would have been playing similar games like this, but on the Game Boy. Also receiving X-Men Mutant Academy, another game that I'm looking forward to playing, because I have played several of the X-Men games for the Sega Genesis and other consoles, so this is definitely a game that I want to give a shot and see what it looks like, because I'm curious about it. Another game that I'm really wanting to jump into is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. This is definitely one of those games that's at the top of my list. With Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 coming out next month, I'm really curious to see how this compares. Obviously the graphics are not going to be the same, but I want to see how it compares to the PlayStation 2 and the early era of the game that this came out and was based off of. Getting games like NBA Jam Tournament Edition. I've played this game for the other consoles, and really enjoyed it, so I'm curious to see how this one compares. That's one of the reasons why I bought this lot of games and wanted to get the mystery box, was to see games like this that I could compare with other consoles to see what they were like. Obviously, Super Off-Road brings me right back to my Game Boy and growing up as a kid and playing this game. I know I had this game for the Game Boy and played a whole lot of it, so when I jump into this one, I know it's going to bring back a lot of memories of sitting in the back of my parents' car and playing this game for hours and hours. Another game that I'm most curious and want to really jump into and try is going to be that Japanese game, Keniku Banzuki. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of this game, but I'm really looking forward to jumping in and seeing what this one's all about. It may be a total dud, but it may also be one of the most awesome games that I've ever seen. So what do you guys think of this haul? Do you guys think there's some games in there with some great value that I should start with first? Let me know in the comment section. I'm definitely going to be diving into some of these games, and your input would be awesome. I usually read all of your comments and will reply back. So if you leave me a comment of a game that you think that you saw that I should start with first, more than likely I'm going to jump into that game first. And once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to every single one of my 100 subscribers. This video, this whole celebration, it's all for you. You guys are the reason I get to do fun things like this and share my love for retro gaming. If you want to join us for more retro adventures, more unboxings, and some gameplay of these very cartridges, then hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell for notifications. Our next goal? Well, that's 500 subscribers. And with your support, I know we can definitely get there. I'm already brainstorming what we can do for that milestone. Thank you all so much for watching and being part of this journey. It's been an absolute blast unboxing these Game Boy games and sharing that experience with you guys today. Until next time, keep those retro consoles warm, keep discovering those hidden gems, and most importantly, keep the nostalgia alive. Until next time, happy gaming.